Mallards. It's Sunday. I am hanging out with Vex. We have been working on some stuff for Conjuration coming up, but I rarely have the opportunity to sit with somebody else who is obsessed with the same podcasts I'm obsessed with, and I have the sudden realization that we are wasting our lives if Vex and I are not telling you how awesome the Penumbra Podcast is.
Yes!
And so that is what this should be about. Entirely. That's it.
Yep.
Welcome to our review of the current 2 episodes of Season 3 of Juno Steel, but also in general about the rest of the Penumbra Podcast.
Should we maybe explain that Penumbra is 2 different storylines?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So, here's the deal. The Penumbra Podcast is one of the beautiful audio drama podcasts that I listen to with regularity. There's a link down there to whatever of theirs I feel like is linkable. They have a website, I think.
Yeah, they also...
It is a link to their Patreon, because you should support them on Patreon.
Also, they sell merchandise on dftba.com.
Okay, and there's also a link to... There's just a myriad of links below that will give you all of the wonderful things about the Penumbra Podcast. So, general overview. The Penumbra Podcast is in its 3rd season. But it will be the 2nd season of... No, I guess it's the 3rd season of all of them.
Yeah. There are 2 different storylines in the Penumbra when they...
Yes. So they have basically 2 podcasts inside of one feed. And one of them is Juno Steel. He is a detective on Mars. Why Mars? Great question. Doesn't matter.
They actually answer that in one of the interviews. If you support them on Patreon, you can have access to that.
Yeah, and isn't the answer they just thought Mars would be cool?
Well, actually, one of them was like, I'm gonna put this on Mars and not tell Sophie. And then Sophie didn't notice until they had already published it, and then was like, wait, what?
Yep.
That's great.
So, why is he on Mars?
Mars is cool.
Yeah. It just needed to be, like, slightly different than Earth. Also, it helps to have a big desert that's mostly not survivable. Adds to the dramatic tension.
That's definitely not plot relevant at all.
And so it follows around this detective, Juno Steel, who's like, whatever, fine, somewhat important. And most importantly, his secretary and sidekick and the best character, Rita.
You are incorrect. Also, most importantly, a thief whose name you are not sure of, who is the best thief in the galaxy.
And is also an important character, but isn't Rita. More on that in a second. We'll come back. No, actually, let's stick up Juno Steel for a while.
No, there's a second plot line, and we can come back to Juno.
No. Let's finish Juno, and then we'll do the second plot line. I think it's easier.
Fine.
So, they developed... There are 2 full seasons of this show already. The first season is basically introducing those characters, and they introduce the thief, and the main arc of the season involves said thief. At the end of season 1, the thief and Juno go their separate directions, and Vex and I cry.
Spoilers.
Yeah, there are spoilers for the first 2 seasons, guys. I'm sorry. And the entire arc of season 2 is basically Juno figuring out what's going on Mars. So that's when Mars becomes relevant. In the first season, they could just live in some city somewhere.
Season 2 is in a glow-up in process for Juno.
Yeah. And so it's like Juno figuring out what's going on Mars, and Juno figuring out what's going on with Juno, and Rita saving the day.
Rita helps.
No. The world ends without Rita.
Rita is vital to the operation. However, what's the name of that plot again? What's the name of that whole, story? Is it Rita's Stories?
No, it's called Juno Steel.
Yeah, so who do you think the main character is?
Yeah, And maintain it's called Harry Potter, but who's the most important? Hermione, because they couldn't do anything without her.
Fine.
See? That's how you win arguments. Anyway.
Peter's still the best.
And then season 3, which is only 2 episodes deep, maybe 3 for Vex because she supports them on Patreon. I don't know.
They last week and this week they didn't release them early, so
okay.
I don't know what's going on, or maybe my feed's broken.
So 2 episodes in to what is basically now a giant space heist. So they've left Mars, they're out in space, and so it went from like season 1 is in the city, season 2 is on the planet of Mars, and season 3 is in space, and the thief is back.
It's so good.
It absolutely is so good.
And he gets character development.
It's really, 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 it is so good. The interactions between the characters are great. Their supporting cast is really interesting and intriguing, and I also really like the representation in both series, but we're talking about Juno Steel right now. So, like, just the representation in Juno Steel and the different kinds of stories they're telling, and how they, like, twist a lot of the classic, like, detective noir tropes and make it really fun. Also, since we're spoiling already, obviously we're big fans of Juno and Peter's relationship.
Yeah, they're adorable, and
They
also
really cute.
the
main worst. Oh.
The main reason that I am yelling in my car when I listen to them.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. They're worth yelling at. I do a fair amount of yelling at them too.
The second episode of season 3, just the last 10 minutes of it was alternating me yelling and listening intently, and then yelling and then listening intently.
It is a very, very, very good show. Highly recommend. They also, since I listened to it the first time, and I don't know about Vex, but have redone the first 3 episodes of the show.
Yes.
So it has like better audio quality.
They still have...
And I think different actors. Because the original had some different people.
It's possible. The last I checked, they still had the originals up that you can listen to, but the audio quality is not as good on them. Mm-hmm. Also, just for clarity's sake, this podcast is extremely queer. Like, not just Juno and Peter's relationship, but just, like, across the board.
Yeah, lots
pretty
of
much.
queer.
Yeah. Also, like...
And also the other series, which we will talk about in a moment here, is also very, very queer.
Yes.
So, if you're not cool with that, why are you watching my videos?
Yeah.
And also don't listen to this podcast. But it's really, really good. So that's a general overview. Rita, who is my favorite character, is the secretary. She is Juno's right-hand gal. And she is definitely one of those people who is super, super smart, even if she can be a little, airheaded from time to time. And she's great. She is the beating heart of basically all of it. And she is, for Juno, even if he doesn't realize it, like, a big part of his heart.
Yeah.
And it takes him a while to figure that out. But, like, it's definitely true. Then we have the other series, which I'm just going to let you introduce. No?
Yes. No, I've forgotten the name of it.
Citadel.
The Second Citadel. Mm-hmm. Yes. The Second Citadel is a story that takes place in a fantasy world. You are following a number of characters, including but not limited to a knight, a couple of guards. There is a scientist who goes out into the wild to try to explore more, what are they called? Things that fix diseases.
Cures?
Thank you. Explore more cures for diseases, and also a dragon person? Like a dragonborn from D&D. A lizard. Yes, lizard man. Thank you.
He's a lizard man.
Lizard man?
Oh my god. I haven't thought about that in a few months. Wow, sorry. Second Citadel is way more queer than Juno Steel.
I would argue that it's...
Just because there are more opportunities and characters.
Yeah, I would also argue it's queer in different ways. Like, Juno, like, has some queer relationships, but I feel also focuses more on the gender doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Yeah. Present what you want as. And for me at least, Second Citadel presents more, like, it touches on polyamory, and it also has the opportunity, as you said, to touch on asexuality, which is very important.
Just a bunch of stuff. It is a wild fantasy epic, focusing. So the third season of that hasn't started yet.
No.
And it, the first season arc is sort of an introduction of most of the characters, and it focuses on, individual adventures of each of them trying to figure out who they are. And as mentioned, so we have a female knight who is trying to, prove herself. There is the scientist/doctor lady who's trying to find all of those cures and that. There is a set of brothers who one of the brothers wants to be a knight.
The other one is dragged along.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And they're trying to prove themselves because no matter how hard they try, they haven't been able to be knights yet. There is, a couple of other knights who, are knights, one of which is, super valiant, and...
He's my favorite, and I love him so much.
Mm-hmm. And then, your classic kind of full of himself sort of knight.
Yeah.
The lizard, as mentioned, although he's not in the first season.
He isn't?
No. Oh. That whole arc is season 2. So the whole first season is basically about the two brothers and, their adventures as they go out and try and fight these creatures and prove themselves worthy, and the people they encounter along the way and sort of how their view of the world changes. And then the entire second season arc is about a threat from monsters against humans and, the relationship between monsters and humans in this world, which, as mentioned, is, a high fantasy D&D world. And it focuses a little bit on, how, maybe what you think about the monsters is not true. And it ends. So this is definitely a show that Vex and I yelled at a lot.
I think you maybe yelled at this one more than I did, because I yell a lot at Juno, and I don't yell that much about Second Citadel.
I yelled at this show a lot. I mostly yelled at this show because it was very clear that the lizard and the loyal knight and the scientist were all three in love with each other and could be a beautiful polyamorous relationship. And it was clear for 7 episodes. And that's so long. That's so many weeks because they're releasing a Juno and then a second. That's 14 weeks.
They usually alternate which episode releases on each
14 weeks that I had to spend being but just tell each other that you like each other. It's gonna be okay.
And this is what it's like to not be desensitized to, you could all just make out and it would fix everything. Because I honestly think the reason that I don't yell at Second Citadel as much is because for all of my adult life, anytime there's any kind of romantic triangle or whatever, I'm just you could just all be dating and it would fix all of your problems, but none of the writers get that. So, when I see it in Second Citadel, I'm yeah, no, it's just the same, it's the same thing all over again.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Then
these writers are better than that.
Walked off into the polyamorous sunset.
Yes. And had a
really
lot
cute
of conversations.
Yeah, they did have a lot of conversations.
Which
I think
is
that's
good.
important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very realistic for a romance between a knight, a healer, and a lizard.
Are you saying that wouldn't be realistic? What about that is weird to you? Oh, it's because the knight and the scientist are together, right?
Oh, no, actually, my main problem is definitely just the knight.
Yeah, okay.
Knights don't do relationships. I was raised on a steady diet of, they fight dragons and do nothing else.
Yeah, you also haven't seen season 8 of Game of Thrones, so...
So those are the 2 shows that are part of Penumbra. We think that the world, overarching, community that they have created is really good. We definitely highly support them. If you like queer stories, I cannot recommend them enough. If you like fantasy, you would definitely like them. If you like mystery, you would definitely... So, like, if you like fantasy, you'll like Second Citadel. If you like mystery, you'll like Juno Steel. If you have a passing interest in either of those, listen to both. I also see no reason, like, not to listen to the other one. But I do understand, like, if you get into Second Citadel and you're like, gosh, I don't want to hear about swords and monsters anymore, that's fine.
Just wait for your detective noir to come back to you.
Yep.
Also, if you like nonfiction queer stories, Sophie Canner is one of the
creators
of
Penumbra.
She is one of the creators of the Penumbra. She has also started a podcast called Edges, where she talks with friends of hers and sometimes strangers about queer relationships in their lives. That is a relatively new podcast. I think they only have like 6 episodes or so.
It's pretty short.
But it is... I really enjoy it. I think it's wonderful. And I routinely cry listening to it, but for good reasons.
I have not listened to it because the list of fiction I listen to is this long. And the list of nonfiction I listen to is this long. And the list of nonfiction that I listen to that is not directly nonfiction talking about audio drama podcasts is this long. So, but maybe someday.
If you like nonfiction.
Yeah, if you like nonfiction, yeah. I say go for it. I support other people enjoying the things I don't because all podcasts need listeners. And some of them it won't be me. This has been a video that I won't have to edit very much except for once Vex cursed. So I will be cutting that out. And I'll see you tomorrow, Mallards.